will be a bright start to the day, plenty of early sunshine, but notice we've got some bright colours on those showers, showing the heaviness of them through tomorrow morning. We could see some spray on the roads because of that across western areas of Scotland, in towards northwestern England, as well as parts of Wales. The Midlands as well, potentially seeing some fairly heavy showers, but most of us getting away with a dry and bright start despite the chillier feel to things at the moment. So another fairly cool day to come tomorrow, especially for the time of year, and if you are further north and west, where it will be another showery day. There's another risk of thunderstorms, potentially some hail as well in those showers, especially as we head in towards Thursday evening here. Elsewhere across Wales, central areas of England and across the south coast in particular, they still feel fairly pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 18, possibly 19 degrees, so that's not too bad for the time of year. Now into Friday, we start to see a band of more persistent rain push across the UK, so that will bring a greater risk of some showery outbreaks of rain a bit more widely across the UK. So a bit more in the way of cloud, and it will still be another fairly cool day. But looking ahead to the weekend, it does look like there's been more in the way of sunshine more widely across the country, and temperatures returning to the low 20s for some of us.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. Migrants kick off outside their detention centre, plus...
I don't use private health. I use the NHS.
Would you let a loved one die on the NHS instead of going private? And the Met chief says that cops are too scared to take on crooks. It's no wonder crime is going through the roof. Plus,
boys that can't get up out of that ground, and they're the ones. I'm filling up.
we'll be live in Normandy as we honour our greatest generation in the run-up to the D-Day memorial services. And Reform's Lee Anderson is live in this studio reacting to polling that puts them just 2 points behind the Tories. Plus,
when Scotland is not playing, will you support England in the Euros?
No.
He doesn't mind being paid by the English taxpayer, though, does he? And
Tory government which has starved our public services and brought the country to its knees.
The Welsh Labour leader there reduced to tears as he faces being turfed out less than 100 days into the job. On my panel tonight is the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and author Rebecca Reid. Oh yes, and Ed Davey has just announced another big policy.
Here we go! We will.
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Are some illegal migrants ungrateful? Next.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening. Well, the latest stories from the GB Newsroom tonight are that both King Charles and Queen Camilla were both visibly upset today hearing about veterans' experiences of D-Day during commemorative events. The royal couple have been in Portsmouth, marking 80 years since the World War II operation began, and Princess Anne has been attending a service in France. Speaking earlier on today, His Majesty paid tribute to veterans, saying their stories could not fail to inspire the nation.
Let us once again commit ourselves always to remember, cherish and honour those who served that day and to live up to the freedom they died for by balancing rights with civic responsibilities to our country. For we are all eternally in their debt.
His Majesty the King at the D-Day commemorations today. Now, in other news, the statistics watchdog is looking into allegations made by Rishi Sunak that a Labour government would push up taxes by £2,000 over 4 years. The Prime Minister and Sir Keir Starmer have been clashing over Tory accusations of black holes in Labour's finances. But until manifestos are published, analysts are saying numbers can't be clear. Rishi Sunak claims Treasury officials came up with the figure, but Sir Keir Starmer called the Prime Minister a liar. And in more exclusive election news, Sir Keir Starmer has also defended his choice to rely solely on the NHS despite earning a 6-figure salary as an MP and opposition leader. In an interview with GB News, the Labour leader said he has unwavering confidence in the health service and referenced the life-saving treatment his mother received. He says it was the NHS that pulled her through.
I grew up with my mum suffering. She was extremely ill. She nearly died several times, and she was treated on every occasion by the NHS on an urgent basis. I have 100% confidence in the NHS, and that is why I wouldn't use anything other than the NHS, and I wouldn't for my relatives. But this is a lived experience for me, because as I was growing up, particularly when I was a teenager, I was in the high dependency unit with my mum, and we nearly lost her a number of times, but she was absolutely clear that it was the NHS that pulled her through every time. I say thank you to them, and I would use them.
And when you It's Keir Starmer. Now, in Wales, Vaughan Gething has lost a vote of confidence in his leadership, something he's called a desperate gimmick by the Conservatives. The First Minister's been criticised over accusations of accepting donations from convicted criminals and misleading the COVID inquiry over his deleted messages. He was defeated in the Welsh Parliament, the Senate, today because of 2 of his Labour colleagues who were off sick and therefore didn't vote. Mr Gething, though, was defiant, saying he wouldn't step down.
Today was an exercise in muck-throwing. The range of different things that were said that members know are simply not true is really quite disgraceful. I'm going tonight to Normandy. I should have been in Portsmouth today honouring our D-Day veterans. I will go to Normandy to do my duty for my country, as any First Minister should. That means a long drive overnight to arrive to do the right thing tomorrow. That's how I feel about serving my country, and that's my intention now and for the future.
And lastly, the first banknotes carrying the portrait of King Charles will go into circulation today. Notes featuring the late Queen Elizabeth II will remain legal tender and co-circulate alongside those bearing the King's image. The new notes will only be printed to replace those that are worn out or to meet any overall increase in demand in order to minimise the environmental impact of the change. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
The people of Britain have been unbelievably generous towards illegal immigrants. We pay millions in tax for them every single day. We've given up local hotels, local housing, our public safety in some cases. We've bent over backwards for them. The people of Wethersfield know this only too well. Their town has been turned into essentially a detention centre. They took the government to court over this. They did lose. Anyway, GB News can exclusively reveal that today some of those illegal migrants decided to conduct a protest outside, blocking roads and causing chaos. The police were called and they tried to deal with it. Yeah, it's concerning stuff, isn't it? Well, hopefully very shortly I'm going to be talking to a Wethersfield resident by the name of Dave Price, who is with us, actually. Dave, look, thank you very much for joining us here on Patrick Christys tonight. Can you shed a bit more light for us, please, on what was going on there?
Yeah, apparently it was about 70 of them came out, and the major complaint they've got is the fact that nothing seems to be happening in terms of the processing. Some of them have been there since the camp was opened, and that seemed to be their main gripe. They had hoped there was somebody from the Home Office was there, and they were just wanting them to come out and just say a few words. But the Home Office person decided to stay in, so the road stayed blocked. And then even more police were called. And I think there's about 20 police were up there, and that's when they decided to go back into the base. Total farce, this is.
Yeah, look, what's it like now living alongside this facility in your area? I know that we've spoken previously as there were plans to do this and then when there were appeals against it, but we are where we are now, and currently where we are is people sitting outside of that base causing a massive scene, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I will give credit where credit is due. They've not been coming down the village. There's been no problem at all. But that doesn't take away from the fact, you know, the government have spent about £40 million plus on this facility. At £5 million, when they first came up with the idea, it was close to break even. So they've wasted £40-odd million plus on this, and there's no progress made at all in terms of processing them. So it's just it's what a total waste of money. And also as well, I'll be quite honest with you, up there, it is so isolated. I wouldn't put my dog up there, if you know what I mean.
So I suppose the concern for you really is that this could get even more volatile, I suppose, going forward. They are obviously very angry and very frustrated. We've got a general election on at the moment, and then we'll see what happens after that. Let's be honest, it doesn't look like their claims are going to be processed anytime soon. I suppose that might be a concern for the local residents.
Well, I guess so. I think some of the residents are concerned that if the Rwanda flights ever take off, and they get to know that, are they going to start thinking about stirring things up? Who knows? But I think the main thing is it's the wrong place to put them, and it's cost taxpayers, like I say, at least £49 million. We can't get hold of how much health is spending on it. We can't get hold on how much the police are spending on it. Because the police were only funded for a couple of officers, but regularly we have police cars, ambulances racing through the village at different times of the day and night. And it's, you know, it's not new, these things going on up there. It's just been a waste of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Dave, thank you very, very much. Tremendous to have you right at the start of the show. Good luck and take care as well. That's Dave Price there, who is a Wethersfield resident. I'm going to go over and get the thoughts of my panel on this now. It's the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Yeah, look, Mark, I'll start with you. Do you think that some illegal immigrants are a little bit ungrateful? I mean, supposedly they've fled war, they've got a roof over their heads, they've got 3 square meals a day, and, you know, they're not in the worst part of Britain, are they?
Yeah, we haven't put on good enough entertainment for them. You know, the pool table's missing a ball. You might say it's that. There's one area where I do agree with them, there. And, Patrick, I've sat on this sofa speaking to you about these sort of issues again and again and again. The time it takes to resolve it. And their key complaint here, from what I can understand, is that processing these applications is taking too long. And I think the UK needs to make it very plain to these people, where do you stand? I think the average time it takes to process an asylum seeker application is now 18 months. I've sat here saying it should be 3 days, 18 days. So they need to be clear where they stand. Complaints about their living conditions, it's too isolated. Those fall on deaf ears as far as I'm concerned. But speed is important. Justice delayed is justice denied. So I think that we actually need a government that's going to say, we're going to make these decisions very quickly on whether you stay or whether you go. Here are your obligations, here are ours, but you won't be in some encampment for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose under the current laws, as I understand them, if those people have arrived recently-ish on small boats, then they should have never an ability to stay in the UK.
Because they've come from safe haven.
Yeah, our problem is that we can't deport them at the moment because of the laws.
Well, that's why we've got to leave the ECHR.
And this is where we are. Adam, do you think that people are ungrateful?
I think they're terribly ungrateful. They shouldn't be here. They're a danger to our society, many of them, as we've seen by some very high-profile cases recently of violence, of murder, and all sorts. What happens is that they throw their IDs, so they can't prove where they're from. They make up a story that is normally told to them by a charity or an organisation. They dupe our Home Office. Even if they are denied asylum in this country, because of the ECHR, we are bound to look after them. They'll still be fed, they'll still be housed. We are in a position now where they can keep coming and they will not be deported. Let's just remember, Nigel Farage has been warning about this problem for almost 10 years. He was vilified. Now, look how popular that man is. He was right. He was one of the first to say it. We have got a serious problem in this country, and I am scared for my children's future if they keep arriving unchecked.
Rebecca, what do you think when you see people now, you know, shouting outside bases like that, doing protests there about their conditions? I mean, they are there at the taxpayers' expense.
Sure, but I think Dave Price had a beautiful read on it. I think he was empathetic. He said, you know, I wouldn't put my dog there. It's not the right place for them to be. And I think given that he's the person who lives there and knows the area, he's probably the expert. So I don't think they're being ungrateful. And, for instance, if I found myself, you know, needing to flee the UK, I wouldn't then want to go and live on a base like that. I'd want my application to be processed quickly. I obviously would want to be allowed to stay where I had arrived. And then I'd want to be able to get on with rebuilding my life. And I think the good thing is we can find one common ground here. They want to be processed faster. We want people to be processed faster.
Well, they want to be accepted faster.
Well, they want to be processed faster either way. And
well, they don't want to be deported, do they?
I presume not, but one of the main reasons that people end up staying when they have an incorrect claim is because the process is badly organised, and a lot of the time things get through because the paperwork isn't done properly. The government needs to put money and time into educated people who know what they're doing handling these claims.
I do wonder, Mark, when you see that and you think, well, actually, they're obviously allowed out. I mean, they are allowed out. This is the other aspect to it as well. I mean, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, I don't particularly necessarily like the actual roof that's over my head. I mean, there's a lot of scepticism about that to begin with, given the fact that that facility there, you know, has got bed, has got food, has got a bit of entertainment. But they can clearly come and go from that place.
No doubt about that. And I don't think that there should be luxuries here. I mean, I'm not trying to punish these people, but it should be at subsistence levels.
But why?
Well,
If somebody's fleeing a war-torn country...
They're not fleeing war.
Let's put them up in the Ritz.
We don't know who the... I would happily put them up in the Ritz. If somebody...
you pay
if
for
somebody
it then, Rebecca.
we all pay for it. But if somebody leaves Afghanistan, which is one of the places people are coming from, I'd like them to have a really nice time when they get here, because they've had a horrible experience.
In that case, Rebecca, go and work for the tourism industry, not the asylum industry.
I don't work for either.
OK, but the idea that our obligation is to give these people a great time when they arrive...
I just can't understand a lack of compassion.
We are processing a human rights case. I would put to you, I can't be certain, because I've never visited this RAF base, nor have I ever visited Afghanistan, but I bet this is a damn sight better than Afghanistan.
But that is your misunderstanding. It's better than Afghanistan now, but these are people who had lives and jobs and homes and
so we're offering them
TV
something
and phones. They had real lives.
No. I've got to come in here because you don't know that. In the same way that this all gets bandied around a load of the time is, well, you know, if people say that these people might be violent or they might be whatever, oh, well, you don't know that for sure. Fine, yeah, you also don't know that. What you've just said there, you don't know anything about this.
We are all having a hypothetical discussion. No one in this room knows where these people are from.
Adam made a really good point.
Do any of you know where those people are from?
Paperwork. Right? I think we've got to be clear about what paperwork we expect from these people. And if there is a supposition that they're throwing it overboard, their claim will fail. They need to establish their own identity.
Some people do, but lots of people don't.
The viewers need... they've got eyes, so they can see that video. There is no women and children there. These are fighting-age men that have come across, for whatever reason they've come across for, and they are gaming our system to the hilt. The reason these
we don't know where they're from.
Yes, the
you
reason
don't know if
these
people
are
from
protesting
Afghanistan.
Because they're in somewhere rural. They can't go and get a cash-in-hand job like many of them are promised. The interviews from the Calais jungle, they talk of Britain as El Dorado.
Because Calais is a hideous place to be.
That means a country or a place of immense wealth. They think they are going to come here and become rich.
But Adam,
Why haven't they brought their wives and children? If they're fleeing war, would I leave my wife and children in a dangerous situation? No, I would not.
Would you put them in a boat? No.
Yes, I would.
So you would put your wife and children in a boat to cross the channel when they could drown, when the alternative might be to take a job, make some money and send that money home.
I would not separate myself from my wife and children if it was a war zone or they was in a place where they could be persecuted. I would stand there and fight.
That on the cursory glance, these all appear to be men roughly between the ages.
I try not to deal in cursory glances because I'm a journalist and that's not our job.
Roughly speaking, this is the evidence before our eyes.
It's a male-only detention centre, so they're all men.
Right, but what do you think of the age of them? Does that speak at all?
I don't know how old they are, and I can't tell by looking at them, and that's bad journalism to just guess.
What might be persuasive to you?
We don't know. What would be persuasive would be some actual data about who these people are, where they came from. Because if they came from Afghanistan, they have every right to be here.
Well, of course they have.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
I don't want them here.
But we help create the problem in Afghanistan.
Neither does the majority of this country want these people in our country. We don't know what they've done in the past. We don't know their views. Hardly any of them can speak English.
Did you want the Ukrainians here?
I want them deported.
But did you want the Ukrainians?
The Ukrainians were mostly women that were fleeing a war.
But
the men had to stay in
men weren't
Ukraine.
allowed to leave because they had to fight.
Men had to stay in Ukraine. So we was helping women and children, and I would hope that we would send them back as soon as the war is finished.
Okay, all right.
Why would you leave men to die?
We are bang out of time. We are bang out of time on that. I will also say there is a concern clearly that things could become more volatile as the situation progresses. Still to come, as GBNews reveals, up to 6 Tory candidates are considering defecting to reform, including a former MP. I will ask Lee Anderson if there is any truth to these rumours. Plus, Stephen Flynn tries to impress his mates in the SNP.
In Scotland is not playing. Will you support England in the Euros?
No.
All right, then we'll stop paying your wages then. All right. But up next, was Keir Starmer wrong to say less?
I don't use private health. I use the NHS.
OK. Well, anarchist Lisa McKenzie goes head-to-head with journalist Lowry Turner, both of whom have interesting experiences about the NHS. It's Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Joint CEO at the UK Sepsis Trust, Dr. Ron Daniels. Very good to see you this morning. Why is it with sepsis we sort of hear very little about it in day-to-day life until there's either a big story or a big tragedy? Why is that? Is it common?
Well, it's astonishing, isn't it? We have a condition here that affects nearly 250,000 people across the UK each year and claims 48,000 lives. And just for context, breast cancer, and I'm not diminishing how horrible that can be, claims 11,000 lives. So sepsis is 4 times more prolific as a killer. I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it doesn't really belong to any particular speciality of doctors. It touches every aspect of healthcare, and therefore there's no professional group to be championing it, which means it needs an advocacy organisation like ours.
My understanding is that it's when your own immune system starts to attack the tissues, but by the time people realise that their temperature isn't just flu or something, they can often be in quite a perilous state.
It arises in people of any age, people with whether or not they've got underlying illness, and it can arise as a consequence of any infection. So it presents hugely differently.
So what do we do?
If you're concerned something is devastatingly wrong, there are 6 key symptoms to look for, and they spell the word sepsis. S for slurred speech or confusion. E for extreme pain in the muscles or joints. P for passing no urine, no water in a day. S for severe breathlessness. I for it feels like I'm going to die, and people really do say that. And then the final S for skin that's mottled or discoloured or very pale. Any one of those 6 in the context of infection, it goes straight to A&E.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you. This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting.
I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Coming up, Reform UK's Lee Anderson gives his take on the Westminster whispers predicting further defections from the Tories to Reform, and also that news that apparently Reform is now just 2 points behind the Conservatives in the polls. But first, should you pay for private healthcare if you can afford to? It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, this all stems from Sir Keir Starmer shocking the electorate at last night's leaders' debate with this response.
A quick point of information to both of you. If you had loved ones on a long waiting list for surgery, would you, if you felt that that was the only way forward, use private healthcare? Rishi Sunak?
Yes.
Keir Starmer?
No.
Absolutely no, if your loved one was on a waiting list for surgery?
No.
Thank you very much.
I don't use private health. Okay. I use the NHS. That's where my wife works.
OK. The waiting list for elective care in the UK currently stands at 7.5 million people, with more than 40% of them waiting more than 18 weeks for treatment as of March this year. So tonight, I am asking, was Sir Keir Starmer wrong to say he wouldn't use private healthcare? Let me know your thoughts. Head over to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GB News, and while you're there, go and vote in our poll. But first, going head-to-head on this, a journalist, Lowry Turner, an anarchist, an academic, Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Now, Lowry, I'll start with you. Do you think Keir Starmer was lying?
No. And I think in a kind of parallel universe where the NHS
works really well, then yes, we'd all love to only use the NHS. We all pay for it in our taxes. I think it's, we all have great respect for it. But the reality is that actually in some situations, the NHS doesn't work very well. So, for example, during the pandemic, I couldn't get my son an appointment to the GP. I just couldn't. And in the end, I booked a private GP online. And once I'd crossed that Rubicon, now we've had another situation where another one of my kids, a kind of adultish kid, needed mental health help. And I knew what the waiting lists are like for mental health help for teenagers. And so I, in the end, paid for a private psychiatrist. Now, would I have preferred to get the NHS? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I wasn't prepared to let my family member suffer while we waited.
Yeah, look, Dr. Lisa, I'll ask you this now. Would you rather a loved one died waiting on an NHS waiting list, or would you go private?
Of course I would rather. And that's the argument here. It shouldn't be either or. What Starmer said, and I'm no fan of Starmer, but he is right. As a political leader and as somebody that's in Parliament, if you use private healthcare or private education, you are basically saying that what we are providing to the country is it's not good enough.
Okay.
And so,
Lisa, I'm really sorry about this. We're going to come back. There's a bit of an issue with your mic, right? So we'll get that sorted, and I will come back to you. All right, apologies about that. Look, Lowry, I'll come back to you. I did wonder when I heard Keir Starmer say that last night, right, whether or not he was a bit out of touch, actually, with the state of the NHS. Because, it's one thing to say that ideologically, but if your mum's ill and they've lost her notes, not once but twice, and they can't diagnose the problem, and you're watching that happen in front of you, you would just go private if you could. I mean, you'd move hell and high water, wouldn't you?
I think, the situation, it depends how much it costs, of course, If it's, a big amount of money, then it becomes a situation where does the whole family have a whip round? I had another occasion this week where I needed some very minor surgery and I had to change the appointment. And when they sent me the letter for the new appointment, it came the day after the appointment. And that's really common. So there's all these kind of sort of logistical problems with booking with the NHS. And sometimes if you're working or even if you can get an appointment, you end up going private just because it works a lot better. And that's not to downgrade the NHS, because in an acute situation, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a big point, isn't it? In that life-saving moment, very often it's absolutely fine, and they resurrect people, quite literally. But then there's the aftercare, or it's the bit that leads up to that. They didn't need to get that serious, and that is the problem. I did wonder, though, Dr. Lisa, I'll bring you back in now, whether or not, actually, we're dealing with a man who's too ideological here. Is he so ideological, that people would have to go on an NHS waiting list, just because private healthcare's got the whiff of elitism about it, but actually it's saving lives?
I think if you're a political leader and you are responsible for running our country and running society, if you say that it's not good enough for my family, what you're doing is you are failing everybody in the country. So I think it's like when Diane Abbott sent her son to private school, I thought she was wrong. But what she was saying was, it's good enough for you lot, but not good enough for my son. Now, does that Keir Starmer is the Labour Party, they say that they're the party of the NHS, so he's got to believe in it. You can't say we're the party of the NHS and then not believe in it. So I don't think it's ideological.
Okay.
I think he has to believe in it.
All right, I mean, the other aspect to this, Lowry, is that if you are actually quite wealthy, and there's a similar aspect to this tied up in the private schools debate as well, actually, which is if you are actually quite wealthy and you can afford to go private and you know that there are 7.5 million people on an NHS waiting list, should you not, because you're all paying for that in your taxes anyway, rich people, we still pay for the NHS, you still pay for the state school system, you could be doing your bit, paying for that and paying the extra to take the burden off the state sector. Is there not a kind of duty there, Lowry?
Well, we hear that argument, and it is the same one that's used about private schools, but the argument that is used about schools is that if you have everybody using state schools and everybody using NHS, everybody has a stake in it, and those with sharp elbows actually push to improve our public services. So actually, I would prefer that we all use the NHS. And I, grew up in a family where it was like a religion, the NHS. But I just feel in the last, particularly 5 years, a lot of us have just been pushed into the private sector. Lack of staff, lack of money, lack of whatever.
Lack of accountability is what it is.
Where we have
it's lack of accountability. I'm telling you, I agree with you about certain things there, but it's a fundamental lack of accountability. When someone loses your notes in the NHS, or the results of an ultrasound or an X-ray don't get passed on, or a mistake happens somewhere along the way, or there's a misdiagnosis, there is no accountability at all in the NHS, but in a private business, Dr. Lisa, you do get that, and that is why private healthcare fundamentally is better, is it not? I just wonder if Keir Starmer's going to come to regret his comments last night.
I don't think so. He has got to believe in the NHS because it's what we all pay for, and we should all believe in it. What you're talking about there is a failure in structure of the NHS. Now, we're not talking about it. Just because it doesn't mean, we are paying for the NHS. What we should be looking at is how we get better, how the NHS gets back on its feet again. Rather than just say, let's opt in. It's not politics.
Okay. Look, both of you, thank you very, very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Good wide-ranging chat there about what is a very complicated topic. That's journalist Larry Turner there, an anarchist and academic, Dr. Lisa McKenzie, both of whom I hope never have to use the NHS anytime soon, for sure. So, who do you agree with? Was Keir Starmer wrong to say that he wouldn't use private healthcare ever? Chris says, if millionaires like him used private healthcare, it would shorten the waiting list for those who couldn't. If he could watch a loved one suffer unnecessarily, he isn't normal. I think those are both very good points, Chris. Ian says, no, it's a personal choice at the end of the day. If he wants to make use of the NHS like the rest of us, then that, in my view, is the right thing to do so. Yeah, fine, but what if? Are you honestly going to watch your mum or your wife or whoever else just, getting bad care, not go private? I don't know. Annette says, in my opinion, he was saying that he thinks what he thinks people want to hear. Yes, although I suppose the counter to that is he is literally standing for election, isn't he? So I suppose it would be weird if he didn't do that. But your verdict is now in. 87% of you think that Keir Starmer was wrong to say that he wouldn't use private healthcare. 13% of you say that he wasn't. Coming up, an astonishing admission from Met Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley. He says that his officers are too afraid to take out criminals in case they are investigated for misconduct afterwards. Well, retired officer Norman Brennan tees off on that shortly. I think it might go a long way to explaining why we hardly get any arrests anymore. But next, is Nigel Farage running Reform UK essentially like a one-man dictatorship? That's an accusation that's been levelled at them. I will put that to Lee Anderson. I'm also going to ask him if rumours are true about more Tory defections to his party and get his take on the latest polls, which appear to suggest they are just 2 points behind the Conservatives. Stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow's going to be another fairly cool day across the northwest with a risk of some further heavy showers, and we could see some further heavy showers this evening with a northwesterly wind pushing showers into similar areas. It's northwestern Scotland where we're going to see the highest rainfall totals. Through the next 24 hours or so, we could see a mix of hail, possibly some hill snow in there as well. We could also see some showers as far south as southwestern England overnight tonight. Many western areas seeing a bit more in the way of cloud tonight compared to last night. So it will be a bit of a milder night for some of us, but I think still where skies stay the clearest, there's a risk of a rural grass frost. So potentially another chilly start for some areas, particularly across eastern Scotland, where it will be a bright start to the day, plenty of early sunshine. But notice we've got some bright colours on those showers, showing the heaviness of them through tomorrow morning. We could see some spray on the roads because of that across western areas of Scotland, in towards northwestern England as well as parts of Wales. The Midlands as well, potentially seeing some fairly heavy showers, but most of us getting away with a dry and bright start despite the chillier feel to things at the moment. So another fairly cool day to come tomorrow, especially for the time of year, and if you are further north and west, where it will be another showery day. There's another risk of thunderstorms, potentially some hail as well in those showers, especially as we head in towards Thursday evening here. Elsewhere across Wales, central areas of England and across the south coast in particular, they still feel fairly pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 18, possibly 19 degrees, so that's not too bad for the time of year. Now into Friday, we start to see a band of more persistent rain push across the UK, so that will bring a greater risk of some showery outbreaks of rain a bit more widely across the UK. So a bit more in the way of cloud, and it will still be another fairly cool day. But looking ahead to the weekend, it does look like there's been more in the way of sunshine more widely across the country, and temperatures returning to the low 20s for some of us.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Still to come, do the police now fear the public more than the public fear them? So retired police officer Norman Brennan is going to be talking to us about the fact that the actual head of the Metropolitan Police has said that his officers are too afraid of misconduct trials to do their job, essentially, which should be a concern for us all. But first, we welcome the Reform UK candidate Lee Anderson. And Rishi Sunak came out swinging last night at the leadership debate as he tackled the key election issue of immigration.
Keir Starmer said, smash the gangs. We put new laws in Parliament that have now led to almost 1,000 criminals and people smugglers being arrested, serving hundreds of years in jail. Because we do need to smash the gangs. Keir Starmer voted against those laws. So, as ever, you say one thing here, but your track record says something completely different, and you can't be trusted to tackle immigration.
Well, despite this, GB News today revealed that as many as 6 Tory candidates are considering defecting to Reform after Nigel Farage became the party leader early this week. And with the deadline to decide falling this Friday, they haven't got long to make up their minds. One of those candidates was thought to be Tom Hunt, former Tory MP for Ipswich. He is, for now, denying that he will defect to Reform, but he told The Telegraph, it's regrettable that we aren't on the same page as Nigel Farage and Richard Tice. Ultimately, we share many of the same views. He also went on about migration. Lee Anderson enters the fray now. Are you expecting more Tory defections, Lee?
I'm not, Patrick, to be honest. I mean, there has been conversations this week. I'm going to be honest, that my phone has been on fire since Monday. You know, lots of calls and text messages from colleagues who are very concerned about losing their seats. But you know, I think it's a case, Patrick, that they're going to go down with the ship. That's what they're going to do. They see the writing on the wall. They're not prepared to make the punch. It's a shame, really, because there's a lot of good Conservative MPs still in the party that deserve to be in Parliament after the next election. But the way things are going, they won't be there, sadly.
So Tory MPs have been calling you and discussing the idea of defecting, at least.
Well, they've been calling me, and well, they've been saying things like, please don't stand in my area. Please don't stand in my constituency. We are good people. We're on the same page. We need to be sat on the green benches in opposition come July. But I'm sorry, you know, it is what it is. You know, the Conservative Party have let the country down. I think the number 10 has let the country down. And there's going to be a bit of a bloodbath come July the 4th, a political bloodbath, Patrick. And sadly, some of my colleagues are going to be looking for work.
Well, let's have a little look at that latest polling. So this landed earlier today. Labour are on 40%. The Conservatives are on 19%. Reform are just behind them now on 17%. That's up from 12% on Friday, OK? The Lib Dems are on just 10%. What is interesting, though, Lee, is that, yeah, you're getting a bit of a bounce. The way that our political system works, though, is that the Lib Dems could get 10% and win 39 seats, and Reform conceivably could win 17% and maybe get 2, 3 if they're lucky. That is an issue, isn't it?
Well, the momentum, Patrick, is clearly with the Reform Party. It's going up and up. We've seen the Farage effect when he joined the race on Monday. We've gone up a couple of 3 points in the polls. He's suddenly made this election campaign exciting. And you was doing the leadership debates last night with Sakia and Rishi. And it was like, to be honest, mate, it was like a couple of pub bores sat in the corner of Witherspoons, boring the what's-this of the whole of the pub. And I tell you what, if them pair had been sat in my local pub, they'd have been cleared off pretty sharpish because the pub would have emptied. It was terrible.
Well, I mean, the results of it were quite interesting. Initially, there was the Sunak 51% to Starmer 49%, and then that seemed to have shifted today. But, I mean, look, I've got to put this to you, because GB News' very own Andrew Pearce has revealed some, what he would describe as bombshell details, Lee, behind Nigel Farage's takeover of the Reform Party after he ousted Richard Tice as leader on Monday, claiming that Tice was blindsided by Farage's sudden decision to become party leader. So Andrew Pearce writes this: Farage would have found it impossible to pull off such a spectacular coup if he had been the leader of any other party, as they all require their leaders to win over the membership. But Reform is a limited company, and as Farage is the majority shareholder with a 53% holding compared to Tice's 33%, what he says goes. The fact that Tice had campaigned tirelessly over the past few years counted for nothing. So, Lee, I mean, is the Reform Party essentially a one-man dictatorship / business?
Well, to be honest with you, Patrick, I wouldn't take a deal of notice of Andrew. Not many people do. He's a great presenter, by the way. But when it comes to politics, I think he can be found wanting. Look, I think most of the country, as you probably are aware, Patrick, I wanted Nigel Farage to come back. I wanted him to come back, and so did Richard. This is great news for the Reform Party, and it's great news for the country. And like I say, it's livened up the debate during this general election campaign, and the country now are taking serious notice of the Reform Party.
It's not run like a normal party, though, is it, Lee?
But we're a new party, Patrick. You know, we've got limited funds, we've got limited infrastructure, limited people on the ground, limited volunteers. We're a new party. We're trying to find us feet. What we need to do, Patrick, is concentrate on winning a few seats in the Parliament, come July the 4th.
Well, would you not be slightly concerned, though, Lee, that if you had a massive point of difference with Nigel Farage, there's no way you can get rid of him? That guy's a majority shareholder. What he says goes. You couldn't vote him out. You couldn't do anything, and you're there, and you've got to take the knee to Nigel.
Well, listen, Patrick, I had a massive difference with Rishi Sunak, and I couldn't get rid of him. So that's a load of nonsense, The political parties, as it is at the moment, have a look at the Labour Party, have a look at the Conservative Party. It's rigged. They get the leader that they want. The members of the Conservative Party never even got a vote at the last leadership contest. It was Rishi or nobody else. It's pretty much the same in the Labour Party. So you know what? We're a new party. We've got probably the best and charismatic leader since Boris Johnson, really, leading the Reform Party. We feel incredibly proud. And you look at the polls this week, I'd shut up. People are now engaged in this general election.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, right? We'll have to watch this space, obviously, but, I mean, one thing you're absolutely right about is it's livened things up a bit, and I think everybody, whether you're left or right, will acknowledge that, right? But tax was a key issue during last night's ITV leadership debate, and it all got a bit weird, actually, about tax last night. So Rishi Sunak claims that a Labour government would cost working families more than £2,000 in tax. Then that was actually questioned by the Treasury this morning. In fact, then even the Spectator said that's rubbish. Keir Starmer was refusing to say exactly which taxes he would hike. I mean, I suspect, Lee, that the reality is that whoever we get as a government after July the 4th, your taxes are going up. We just don't know how much by and what taxes they are. But, Lee, your new leader has said that Reform would cut taxes. If you're being seriously honest about this, what taxes are you cutting? Have you costed this, or are you just saying it?
Well, I think the first tax we're looking at cutting, Patrick, if we do get into power, is the income tax threshold. That's going to go up from £12,500 to £20,000, and they've been quite clear. Richard Tice, with the contract to the people, it's about cutting government waste. It's about making it growing the economy in a realistic level. There's lots of ways. I've seen it, Patrick, firsthand, working in local government, working on the councils. The civil service. We see the NHS, which is wasting billions of pounds every year. This is what the Reform Party are looking at seriously. We know it happens. We know it happens every single day. There's lots of money in this country to be saved.
Yeah, OK, but it is tricky, though, for you, Lee, isn't it? Because this election was called, and you've got to put a proper manifesto out there very soon. And the big issue for a lot of people is, have you costed this? Have you costed it? Have you costed it? It's not been costed, has it?
Well, look, you know, Patrick, as a Conservative, as an ex-Conservative, and I still class myself as a Conservative, I was always told by the senior members of the party, if you like, the number 10, that when you cut taxes in this country, it puts more money in people's pockets, they spend more money, and it grows the economy. It's the same principle. Check the Laffer curve out.
Oh, all right. On that bombshell. Lee, thank you very much. Lee Anderson, there, Reform UK. Right, look, coming up, Keir Starmer speaks exclusively to GB News after saying that he wouldn't, under any circumstance, use private healthcare.
I wouldn't use anything other than the NHS.
Oh, all right, that was brief, wasn't it? But next, Met Chief Sir Mark Rowley makes a shocking admission. Apparently, the first thought of the police officers who tackled a man who allegedly killed a 14-year-old boy in Hainault was, are we going to be investigated for how it was dealt with? Yes, you heard that right. Not actually solving that alleged crime or trying to stop it from taking place. So are police officers now more scared of the public than the other way around? Norman Brennan is right at the heart of this issue. He joins me live. How afraid are our police of actually being dragged before the courts themselves? Stay tuned.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. It was they then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance, John.
This is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
And you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely, poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking, when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich said, we're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr Rendler's family are experiencing. You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now, more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you. This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Coming up, after he said that he'd never use private healthcare, has Sir Keir Starmer actually contradicted his own Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting? I've got a couple of clips to show you later on. I think you might enjoy them. But first, Met Police boss Sir Mark Rowley has claimed that police officers are hesitant to take on criminals in case that they are investigated for misconduct afterwards. He told the London Policing Board yesterday, one impact is officers increasingly hesitant to act. All of our data puts a load of emphasis on their sense of post-incident, whether they are going to get a fair investigation and fear that if I act with good intent, the world could still fall on top of me in an unfair way. I've seen examples where that's exactly what's happened. The whole regulatory approach to policing is misplaced. It makes it too hard to remove officers who shouldn't be in policing, and the 99% who are doing a great job, it discourages them from doing their job, which, can I just say, should be, you know, horrific news to all of us. But the Met Police Chief went on to specifically say one of the officers who apprehended the man accused of killing a 14-year-old boy in Hainault last month claimed they feared being investigated for how they dealt with that incident. I'm joined now by retired London police officer, founder of Protect the Protectors, Norman Brennan. Norman, look, this is absolutely horrendous that we have the police who are clearly too scared of lawfare to act.
It's as bad as you highlight, Patrick. It's taken a long, long time for the Met Commissioner to admit what hundreds of Met officers have been telling me since he became the Commissioner. What does it say when you as a police officer are called to possibly a life-threatening situation against you, your colleagues, or members of the public, with someone with a knife or a gun or with a weapon, and you're thinking throughout the entire time of dealing with that incident, if I do something wrong, if a member of the public videos me and puts it on social media, pressure will be put on the Commissioner or my Chief Constable for me to be suspended. And I think what epitomised what Mark Rowley has said, Patrick, was this. A few months ago, I saw two firearms sergeants parked up in their big 4x4. I parked up behind them, I was having a coffee, and I had a chat with them for 30 minutes. Both were pretty experienced, one very experienced, the other one 15 years in. And I said to them, I said, after the shooting of Chris Caber, when you get called to a firearms incident, does it ever cross your mind when you pull out your firearm, if you discharged that firearm, the implications? And do you know what? They both didn't really hesitate, and they said, Norman, we do. Now, that moment of lapse, concentration, could cost that officer their life. That is how bad it is, and that is the sort of trouble that policing are in. And they're frightened of getting suspended. They're frightened of getting under investigation. You're under investigation now, Pat, for 2 to 3 years for a crime or an offence or a discipline allegation on a simple stop and search for 2 years, 3 months. Two of the officers that I'm actually representing or looking after in the Met are broken. They were once strong. They disarm people. One's in charge of a robbery squad. He messaged me only 2 days ago. He said, Norman, 2 years, 3 months, I've gone through hell. He said, do you know what all I did for the Met Police was do a stop and search? And Patrick, just before you come back, those two officers were exonerated by the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, classic.
The Met professional standards look for all the body-worn camera, but the IOPC, because the mother wasn't happy about it, insisted the Met discipline them.
Yeah.
These two officers, from being strong, are now on antidepressants, broken, failed, and alone. That's the reality of frontline policing, Pat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We are a bit pressed for time, but, I mean, is this the reality of it, Norman, that you go out as a police officer, you're not incredibly well paid, you stop someone because you think you've got grounds to stop and search them, and then someone pulls the camera phone out, and before you know it, you wake up 2 years later, you're now a racist and you haven't got a job anymore?
Yep. All these allegations, and often only convenient clips, are actually put on social media, puts pressure on chief constables, police crime commissioners. And the thing is, Pat, is that these police officers are leaving in their droves. Stop and search is down from 1.5 million in 2009 to 500,000 last year. And officers are telling me now, Norman, I'm not going to carry out stop and search. I value my career, my family far more. And to finish off with, Pat, do you know what it is? The Metropolitan Police and chief constables and police crime commissioners around Britain have lost touch with their frontline officers, and it's all about corporate image. Well, the image is police officers are leaving in their droves.
Norman, well said as ever, and thank you very much for that insight. That's Norman Brennan there, retired London police officer. I'll chat to you again very soon. Right, look, coming up, we cross live to the very first house to be liberated in France on D-Day. Remarkable story that. We will bring that to you. But next, Starmer doubles down on his point-blank refusal to go private.
I wouldn't use anything other than the NHS, and I wouldn't for my relatives, but this is a lived experience.
But hang on a minute, he's just blown up Wes Streeting's argument that we need to stop viewing the NHS as a religion, hasn't he? So are they at odds with each other there? Wouldn't be the first time, would it? Patrick Christys tonight. I'll see you in a sec.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow's going to be another fairly cool day across the northwest with a risk of some further heavy showers, and we could see some further heavy showers this evening with a northwesterly wind pushing showers into similar areas. It's northwestern Scotland where we're going to see the highest rainfall totals. Through the next 24 hours or so, we could see a mix of hail, possibly some hill snow in there as well. We could also see some showers as far south as southwestern England overnight tonight. Many western areas seeing a bit more in the way of cloud tonight compared to last night. So it will be a bit of a milder night for some of us, but I think still where skies stay the clearest, there's a risk of a rural grass frost. So potentially another chilly start for some areas, particularly across eastern Scotland, where it will be a bright start to the day, plenty of early sunshine. But notice we've got some bright colours on those showers, showing the heaviness of them through tomorrow morning. We could see some spray on the roads because of that across western areas of Scotland, in towards northwestern England, as well as parts of Wales, the Midlands as well, potentially seeing some fairly heavy showers. But most of us getting away with a dry and bright start, despite the chillier feel to things at the moment. So another fairly cool day to come tomorrow, especially for the time of year, and if you are further north and west, where it will be another showery day. There's another risk of thunderstorms, potentially some hail as well in those showers, especially as we head in towards Thursday evening here. Elsewhere across Wales, central areas of England and across the south coast in particular, it still feel fairly pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 18, possibly 19 degrees, so that's not too bad for the time of year. Now into Friday, we start to see a band of more persistent rain push across the UK, so that will bring a greater risk of some showery outbreaks of rain a bit more widely across the UK. So a bit more in the way of cloud, and it will still be another fairly cool day. But looking ahead to the weekend, it does look like there's been more in the way of sunshine more widely across the country, and temperatures returning to the low 20s for some of us.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
I don't use private health. I use the NHS.
Do you think he's telling the truth there? I'm not sure. And
boys that can't get up out of that ground, and they're the ones.
yeah, we've got something very special for you. We're going to be live in Normandy as we honour our greatest generation in the run-up to D-Day. It's the first house that was liberated in France on D-Day. We'll be taking you to that, so make sure you stay tuned. Also, the latest polls show that Reform could overtake the Conservatives. And
when Scotland is not playing, will you support England in the Euros?
No.
He doesn't mind being paid by the English taxpayer, though, does he? Plus,
Tory government which has starved our public services and brought the country to its knees.
The Welsh Labour leader there reduced to tears as he faces being turfed out less than 100 days into the job. I've got all the front pages with the director of Popular Conservatives, Martin Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and author Rebecca Reid. And here is the Lib Dems' latest policy announcement.
Here we go! We will!
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Would you let a loved one die on the NHS? Next.
It's just after 10 o'clock. The latest news. His Majesty the King and Queen Camilla have joined former soldiers and children in Portsmouth today, where thousands of Allied troops departed for France on the same day in 1944. It's been the first of 2 days of tributes to D-Day veterans on the eve of the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings. Speaking earlier, His Majesty paid tribute to the veterans, saying their stories could not fail to inspire the nation.
Let us once again commit ourselves always to remember, cherish and honour those who served that day and to live up to the freedom they died for by balancing rights with civic responsibilities to our country. For we are all eternally in their debt.
His Majesty the King. Now, in other news today, the statistics watchdog is looking into allegations made by Rishi Sunak that a Labour government would push up taxes by £2,000 per family over 4 years. The pair have been clashing over alleged black holes in financial plans made by Labour. But until manifestos are published, analysts are saying the numbers can't be clear. Rishi Sunak claims the Treasury came up with the figure, but Sir Keir Starmer's called that a lie.
What you saw last night was a Prime Minister with his back against the wall, desperately trying to defend 14 years of failure, resorting, and it was a flash of his character, an insight into his character, to lies. I don't say that lightly. To lies about Labour's plans, about health waiting lists, about, the tax, lies from the Prime Minister.
Sir Keir Starmer. Now, it's been an emotional day in the Senate in Wales today, with First Minister Vaughan Gething losing a vote of no confidence in his leadership, something he's called a desperate gimmick by Conservatives. He's been criticised over accusations of accepting donations from convicted criminals and misleading the COVID inquiry over deleted messages. But he was defeated in the Welsh Parliament today because 2 of his Labour colleagues were sick and therefore didn't vote. He's defiant, however. Mr Gething says he will not step down.
Today was an exercise in muck-throwing. The range of different things that were said that members know are simply not true is really quite disgraceful. I'm going tonight to Normandy. I should have been in Portsmouth today honouring our D-Day veterans. I will go to Normandy to do my duty for my country, as any First Minister should. That means a long drive overnight to arrive to do the right thing tomorrow. That's how I feel about serving my country, and that's my intention now and for the future.
Vaughan Gething. Now, on the campaign trail today, the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davies, been calling for regular mental health MOTs. It comes as he was forced to apologise for a speeding offence after he was caught doing 73 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone on the M1. He says he paid a fine and had 3 points added to his licence. Going a little bit faster, Boeing's troubled Starliner space rocket has at last taken to the skies today with 2 astronauts on board. This was the moment it thundered into life and roared off the launch pad. If you're listening on radio, we're watching a dramatic takeoff as the rocket heads into space. A previous Starliner mission at the weekend was delayed by a last-minute fault, but today's flight is the company's first attempt to fly its spacecraft with its astronauts to the International Space Station as it steps up its competition with Elon Musk's SpaceX. Before we hand back to Patrick, some breaking news coming to us out of London this evening. Residents in Hackney have been urged to stay indoors after a fire has broken out there. Thick black smoke billowing from a 4-storey block of flats, prompting a response from 15 fire appliances and more than 100 firefighters. Locals describing the scene at the moment as devastating. Smoke visible across much of that area of the capital. Residents have been taken to nearby churches and community centres for their safety. Firefighters are working to control the blaze this evening. We'll bring you more on that as we get it. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Would you honestly let a loved one die on the NHS instead of going private? Sir Keir Starmer came out with this line last night.
Absolutely no, if your loved one was on a waiting list for surgery.
No.
Thank you very much.
I don't use private health. Okay. I use the NHS. That's where my wife works, in one of the big hospitals. As I say, it runs through my DNA.
OK.
Compare that to Rishi Sunak.
If you had loved ones on a long waiting list for surgery, would you, if you felt that that was the only way forward, use private healthcare? Rishi Sunak.
Yes.
And today, Sir Keir Starmer appeared to double down.
I grew up with my mum suffering. She was extremely ill. She nearly died several times, and she was treated on every occasion by the NHS on an urgent basis. I have 100% confidence in the NHS, and that is why I wouldn't use anything other than the NHS, and I wouldn't for my relatives. But this is a lived experience for me, because as I was growing up, particularly when I was a teenager, I was in the high dependency unit with my mum, and we nearly lost her a number of times, but she was absolutely clear that it was the NHS that pulled her through every time. I say thank you to them, and I would use them.
But hang on a minute, because here is Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting saying things like we need to use private healthcare and the NHS isn't a religion.
It's a service, not a shrine. We've got to stop kind of just thinking of it as a national religion and make sure that it is an institution and a system that delivers the best outcomes, and it's got the potential to do that, but it does need reform.
And you've got a situation today where middle and upper class people who can pay to go private are being seen faster.
I want to see people treated as fast as possible. If there is spare capacity in the private sector, we will use it.
Well, the current NHS waiting list is more than 7 million people. As of March last year, around 140,000 people were waiting over 4 months for urgent heart treatment, OK? 10,000 apparently had waited over a year. So if your loved one was in that situation, and if Keir Starmer's loved one was maybe in that situation as well, do you not think that you might go private if you could? The old NHS classic of misdiagnosis, lost notes, lost x-rays. Here are the questions for me. Is Sir Keir Starmer out of touch with how bad the NHS actually is? Is he ideological and principled? Maybe there's that. Do wealthy people have a duty to go private if they can and relieve the burden on the rest of us? But let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. So I'm joined by the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'll start with you. Do you think Keir Starmer's lying there?
I think technically he is. I don't use private health, he has said. Has he ever bought a packet of paracetamol over the counter? That's private medicine that you pay cash for. I can't be sure that I mean, it's not surgery, but that's payment for a medicine. I think the ideological mask has slipped here. What would he do? I don't know if, I mean, pray to God this doesn't happen, but suddenly a member of his family became immobile. Would he pay about £3,000 to put a stair lift into his house? Or would he write a letter to the National Health Service asking for one and doing nothing himself until that occurred? It seems to me implausible that this is the case. And the truth of the matter is all of us, I mean, I've given the £7 for a packet of paracetamol example, all of us use private health. And look, if you've got the wherewithal, I don't, I'm affluent but not rich enough, and you are diagnosed with early stage cancer and you're determined to survive, the best thing you can do is take a flight to the United States of America and pay a fortune for cancer treatment there. Your chances of survival are much, much higher.
Did you say £7 for paracetamol?
Yeah, I just
You can
looked
get it for like 42p.
You can, yeah.
Don't pay for branded paracetamol.
Hang on, I just literally Googled it.
No, I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying don't, because it's the same. It's
I do wonder if Keir Starmer has had the full NHS experience, right? So there's one thing, urgent care, and I think sometimes the NHS is very, very good at that. If you're literally about to die, sometimes they can resurrect you in a way that maybe only Jesus Christ himself was capable of previously. But it's the stuff in between. It's the lost X-rays, it's the lost ultrasounds, it's the seeing several different doctors who the notes haven't been passed on and they can't transfer pictures from one to another one. Sure. If he had that experience and it was a choice between waiting, a year to have a routine examination or going private, I am sorry, I struggle to believe that the guy who could well be our Prime Minister would wait a year.
I don't believe a word he says, especially on this. Again, I would chop off my left arm on the NHS to save...
They'll do it for you, mate.
To save...
Went in for a dodgy toe.
To save my child or my mother or a loved one.
What illness do they have that they need your arm?
Look, I'm trying to make a point here. I would do anything to save a loved one from dying.
Yeah.
And for him to come out and say that, I think he's mugged himself off. He's embarrassed himself. I think people look at him and think, why should I believe you on anything else? Look, at the end of the day, I've been lucky enough to be able to afford private healthcare for the last 10, 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I will continue to do that because I would like to think if something happened, I could get my child seen straight away. I'm paying twice, my taxes and I'm paying private healthcare. Surely I am helping others be seen quicker by doing that.
All right.
So
that's an interesting point. I'm keen to get your views on this.
So I don't think that he is lying. I think because he wants to be Prime Minister, he absolutely wouldn't do that. So I think it's true in that sense. Also, he didn't privately educate his children, as far as I know, which a lot of Labour politicians can't swallow that bitter pill of using the system they say we should all use. So he is consistent in that belief. I have used private healthcare for my child largely because I wanted to be seen on a day or a time that suited me.
Exactly.
Because I work, not because I wanted to jump a waiting list. I have to say, I also considered giving birth privately because I wanted to have an elective caesarean. But actually, the outcomes are worse in private hospitals for birth. Their emergency system is not the same. They don't stock as much blood if you need a transfusion. So there are lots of places in which private healthcare isn't better. So I think when we talk about urgent care, the NHS is amazing. And for emergencies, they're incredible. I do understand if you need a hip replacement and you're in a lot of pain. If you can afford it, I don't see anything wrong with paying.
But most healthcare isn't about emergencies. There are terrible cases. You've been involved in a car accident. We need to give you a blood transfusion. But an awful lot of healthcare is, I need a hip replacement.
I think it's
I've got an aching back.
I think honestly, if you're under 40, I have never used the NHS for anything other than pregnancy or emergencies. And I don't think most people
but most of the NHS bill is for people over the age of 40. That's when you start to get bigger problems. And going back to Adam's point, I mean, the bit that I think people worth as much as Keir Starmer I was trying to find out how much he's
Yeah,
worth. I don't
it varies
know.
online.
5 million, 7 million, 10 million. It's not only should you do this in the interest of your loved ones, I think you have a moral obligation to. I renewed my private healthcare 24 hours ago. I'm not a mega rich person, but I can afford it. I think I should get out of the queue. I wouldn't force people to do this, but I think it's an honourable thing to do, not just to look after yourself, but to actually make sure the waiting lists go down.
Let's be honest what Keir Starmer's doing here. He's done it with private schools. They're trying to demonise people that pay to send their kids to private schools, pay for private healthcare. They're virtual signalling to their less well-off voters. And at the end of the day, we are paying twice. I've got my kids in private school. I can't afford it much longer. They're coming out next year. But I pay for private healthcare. I pay for private schooling. I'm paying twice.
Thank you.
Why demonise me?
I don't think there's much moral morality, I should say, about the idea of ideologically refusing your wife to go private when she's ill.
I think, well, the idea that it would be his choice what his wife did for healthcare is wildly problematic. The only sensible answer to that question is it would be my loved one's choice. I am not in charge. But there are issues with getting things that other people can't have because you have money. That is an issue fundamentally.
Let's hope he doesn't have a loved one that needs it.
We are going to, for a very good reason, I'm afraid, we are going to have to draw a line under this now because coming up, this isn't it, by the way, but coming up, he was celebrated as the first black political leader in Europe when he took up the mantle of the Welsh First Minister some 12 weeks ago. But today, Vaughan Gething sobbed in the Senate as a no-confidence motion was voted through against him.
Tory government which has starved our public services and brought the country to its knees.
Well, there he is. But this is the good reason why we're knocking that first bit of the show on the head slightly early. We cross live to Normandy, where Ellie Costello continues her extensive D-Day coverage. She's going to report from the very first house liberated in France as British and American troops secured the famous Pegasus Bridge in June 1944.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
How prevalent is it in those with darker skin, like me?
That's a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. So your skin tone does affect your risk of skin cancer. People at the most risk are people with lighter skin tones, so light-coloured hair and eyes as well, lots of moles and freckles, a history of sunburn or a family history of skin cancer. But people with darker skin tones can still burn and can still get skin cancer. Anybody can get skin cancer. So I would encourage everybody, regardless of your ethnicity or your skin tone, to think really seriously about taking care when it's sunny. That myth that you've mentioned that black people can't get skin cancer is really prevalent, and that's something I want to dispel right now immediately, because more black people think maybe they can't get skin cancer. That might mean that when they spot something unusual for them, they're less likely to go to the doctor and they're diagnosed later. And when you're diagnosed later, your outcomes do tend to be worse.
So the figures are disturbing that more people are getting skin cancer. But what about outcomes? I mean, if you do get skin cancer, what are your prospects?
So yeah, like you say, this research is a mixed picture. We're seeing incidence, so the number of new cases going up. which is not good news. But there is some good news in that mortality, so whether you're going to die or not, is actually going down. And we think that's partly due to early diagnosis, which I just mentioned is so important. But also research has led to better and kinder treatments, which mean the outcomes are likely to be better. So now, if you're diagnosed at the earliest stage, stage 1, with melanoma, actually, around 9 in 10 people will survive their disease for 5 years or more.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming in very, very soon. But GB News is continuing its coverage of the celebrations to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. And I'm very pleased to say I've got something really special lined up for you now, because we can cross live to GB News presenter Ellie Costello, who is in Normandy for us and has been doing some absolutely fantastic, at times, I must say, Ellie, deeply moving reports from us. Can you just explain to us a little bit about where you are now, what's going on?
Hi, Patrick. Well, today has been deeply moving. We've been at the war graves, the war cemetery in Normandy, and there's been such a contrast between today and tonight. We're here in Pegasus Bridge in Normandy. I just want to show you how many thousands of people have come out to Pegasus Bridge tonight, and it is the scene of jubilation. You might be able to hear the pipes, bands, people are here drinking, having a barbecue. It is really a scene of jubilation and joy and celebration. People coming from all over the world. Generations are here. And they're here, Patrick, because that bridge, which you might be able to catch just behind me here, is where British troops, British airborne troops, landed at 23:16 local time on the 5th of June 1944. This bridge was of strategic importance to the Allies. They knew if they didn't secure this bridge, there would be no point having an invasion on the shores of Normandy, because the Germans could quite simply cross this bridge and take on the Allies. They knew they had to secure this bridge. So this is where D-Day started, and it's the unknown story that many people don't appreciate. So this is where it started, and those British troops came down. If you come with me, they came down to this building here, Patrick. This is Café Gondry. It is the first building, the first home, the first family that was liberated by the British troops. And earlier we spoke to Madame Arlette, who was just a 4-year-old little girl on that day, on the 5th of June 1944, when those British troops arrived in her home. I spoke to her a little bit earlier on.
Very grateful to the British who have risked their life to give us the freedom which we all enjoy today.
And tell us about what you did with the British troops, because your family did something very special to those men that came in and liberated you.
That is absolutely right. My father had hidden his wine, his champagne and liquor, so the Germans would not find it, or he would be forced to sell it. And so in the garden, almost 3,000 bottles. But when the British troop arrived, and also to say thank you to them, Daddy said to the British soldiers who were digging the trenches, dig it up, it's all for you. So that's the reason why the champagne ceremony is specific to the Gondrays at Café Gondray.
Well, Patrick, it was such an honour to meet Madame Arlette. She said that she really enjoys meeting the British veterans every single year. She says she has a special place in her heart for the British because we have a real respect for history and a real respect for what happened here. And as we speak, actually, in the past 5 minutes or so, that champagne toast has started in Café Gondry with Madame Arlette. She has opened her very best bottle of champagne for the veterans, and it is so sad that that number of veterans is dwindling every single year. We are losing more and more of that great generation, but she said to me a little bit earlier on, now is the time to start passing on that light, start passing that torch to the next generation. And tonight, Patrick, we can see the generations that are united to remember what happened here, the start of D-Day, the start of the liberation, and of course, the start of the end of the Second World War.
Doug, thank you very, very much. Really incredible stuff that you're doing for us over there, and so important as well. And I just think there's something about it. Every single time I hear people like Madame Arlette talk, it just starts to bring a tear to my eye. So, Ellie, thank you for everything, and yeah, keep doing what you're doing over there. That's Ellie Costello, GBNews presenter. Really, really moving. So it just gets me every time when you hear people like that, I think, talk about it, doesn't it? You know, she was mentioning there about how it's important to try and pass that stuff on, and really, because there are, tragically, yeah, every single year there's less and less of these people, aren't there? Your family, I believe, has got a bit of a link to World War II, has it, Mum?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, the incredible thing about D-Day, of course, is the bravery and the courage, not just the military operation. My grandfather, though, I checked the details of this just earlier today, was an Admiralty scientist. He was particularly working on radars and beams and the rest of it. My cousin has written a book called The Battle of the Beams. This was desk work. It required intelligence, not bravery. But I think it's widely considered that it helped shorten the war. No bravery, no courage, wasn't risking his life like the brave people who, you know, we're remembering for that start of the liberation today. But, you know, everybody did their part. And, Patrick, you're right. I think it's going to become harder and harder to keep this story alive. We see all of this stuff about people not knowing what D-Day is and the rest of it. And whilst we've got these people on television who are able to enunciate it, it's terrific. But in 10, 12... 15 years' time, we're going to have to make a bigger effort to keep this story alive.
Yeah, but we will always have... This is the beauty of modern technology, because we will always have clips of Madame Arlette there talking. That's the inside of that cafe, by the way. So she is currently doing this champagne toast to the British for helping to liberate it. And, Adam, it is so important that we make sure that we honour these traditions, I think.
100%. You know, I don't think I could have done that. These men were true heroes. This is when men were really men. Imagine how brave you've got to be, rocking up to a beach under machine gun fire and mortars. I mean, it makes me go cold now thinking that I'd have to do that, or my children would have to do that, because I don't know if I could, you know. Yeah. And these men not only fought for our freedoms, they fought for future generations' freedoms. We wouldn't be sat here now if they hadn't won that war.
Yeah.
And some of them paid the ultimate price, and for that, they deserve to be immortal, you know, immortalised in history.
Well, and I heard an interview that Ellie did earlier. I would urge everyone, if you are on social media, to just go and have a little look at that, which was a gentleman who is now very old, who was, I think he said 19 on D-Day, witnessed it all, saw all of the horrors, then saw all of the heroism as well. And he said that he's there at the grave sites because, unfortunately, there are, as he put it, a load of men who can't get up out of the ground anymore, and it's important to remember them, I think.
Absolutely, but I also think it's really important to remember that this wasn't like a video game, this isn't something we glorify. They were incredibly brave, and it matters that we talk about it, but it also matters that we try and stop it from ever happening again. And I think occasionally there's a section of people who look back at it almost with nostalgia, like it was a great time for Britain, and it wasn't a great time for Britain. People's children were dying, people were losing loved ones every day, so never again. And that's what Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon wrote war poems about for a very good reason. So yes, they're incredibly brave, but let's try and make sure that we never have to be that brave again.
Yeah, I mean, we hopefully never have to live through or witness anything like that. But look, really important to remember that, and make sure that you do keep it GB News over the coming days, because we are really going to be trying to do our best to highlight everything that is going on in Normandy just to commemorate D-Day and to try to keep that memory of what happened and the ultimate sacrifice that people paid and the evil that they were fighting against alive. But look, coming up, Gen Z's anti-Semitic underbelly laid bare. I mean, the contrast between what we've just been talking about and this, by the way. But get this. A shocking poll reveals that 54% of young Brits think Israel shouldn't exist. How have we got to this point? Like I said, the contrast between those two stories. Plus, Vaughan Gething sobs in the Senate after losing a no-confidence vote.
Tory government which has starved our public services and brought the country to its knees.
There we go, a bit of Labour chaos in Wales. But next, I deliver the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my press pack. Stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow's going to be another fairly cool day across the northwest with a risk of some further heavy showers, and we could see some further heavy showers this evening with a northwesterly wind pushing showers into similar areas. It's northwestern Scotland where we're going to see the highest rainfall totals. Through the next 24 hours or so, we could see a mix of hail, possibly some hill snow in there as well. We could also see some showers as far south as southwestern England overnight tonight. Many western areas seeing a bit more in the way of cloud tonight compared to last night. So it will be a bit of a milder night for some of us, but I think still where skies stay the clearest, there's a risk of a rural grass frost. So potentially another chilly start for some areas, particularly across eastern Scotland, where it will be a bright start to the day, plenty of early sunshine. But notice we've got some bright colours on those showers, showing the heaviness of them through tomorrow morning. We could see some spray on the roads because of that across western areas of Scotland, in towards northwestern England as well as parts of Wales. The Midlands as well, potentially seeing some fairly heavy showers, but most of us getting away with a dry and bright start despite the chillier feel to things at the moment. So another fairly cool day to come tomorrow, especially for the time of year, and if you are further north and west, where it will be another showery day. There's another risk of thunderstorms, potentially some hail as well in those showers, especially as we head in towards Thursday evening here. Elsewhere across Wales, central areas of England and across the south coast in particular, it still feel fairly pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 18, possibly 19 degrees, so that's not too bad for the time of year. Now into Friday, we start to see a band of more persistent rain push across the UK, so that will bring a greater risk of some showery outbreaks of rain a bit more widely across the UK. So a bit more in the way of cloud, and it will still be another fairly cool day. But looking ahead to the weekend, it does look like there's been more in the way of sunshine more widely across the country, and temperatures returning to the low 20s for some of us.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. In my hand, I have the first of tomorrow's front pages. Let's do it. All right, we go with the Daily Mail. As veterans move the Queen to tears at D-Day ceremony, King pays emotional tribute. Our eternal debt to the fallen heroes. It's a D-Day front page. The picture story there is of Camilla, Queen Camilla, with tears in her eyes. Oh, I like the front of the Daily Express. The Daily Express, eternally in their debt, and a picture of Peter Smoothie, 99, at Juno Beach in Normandy yesterday. Yeah, look at that. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it, really? I think that actually really, really moving stuff. Let's go to the Metro. Camilla's tears for D-Day hero. Yeah, obviously there is a theme on the front pages here. It's the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings. I'm lucky to be here, but my best pal Fred never made it, says one of the veterans here. It reflects, yeah, it says it reflects the fight that they fought against. Let's go to the Independent. So they've got Queen's tears for fallen D-Day hero 80 years on. She spoke to a chap called Eric Bateman. Apparently, he was giving a very moving account of his day. They also have another story on the front page there. Treasury trashes Rishi Sunak over Labour tax claim. I'm absolutely certain that every single one of you has been made aware of that story since you first woke up this morning, so possibly a little bit out of date. But nonetheless, £2,000 tax claim from Rishi Sunak being largely thrown into the toilet by the Treasury. Daily Telegraph. This, for me, is the most interesting front page of the day. Hunt issues challenge to Starmer over taxes on property. Now, this is where it's getting quite spicy over tax. We know that they're saying, oh, well, we're not going to raise your income tax. We're not going to raise your national insurance. We're not going to raise your VAT. Fine. Do they think we're stupid? Because there is a world of other things that can be taxed out there, and I suspect they're going to do pretty much anything. Draw your curtains on July the 4th or July the 5th. Look around, and if it can be taxed, I suspect it probably will be. Reform closes gaps on Tories to 2 points after Farage's return. Is their other story? I'm focusing on tax first. Look, there are an unbelievable number of taxes. Stamp duty, corporation tax, inheritance tax. I mean, George Osborne was talking in a podcast with Ed Balls, right? Yet another one of those podcasts. We need more, don't we? We need loads of them. Saying that actually he thinks that if the Tories really want to win this election, they should do away with inheritance tax. Are we there?
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, look, the problem with this dance of the seven veils, Patrick, is you kind of say, well, we promised not to increase VAT. You say, OK, well, it's going to be some other tax you're going to put up then. Even on income tax, you get into this position, we won't increase income tax. But then they cheat by freezing the thresholds because 12.5 grand in 5 years' time is not going to be worth anything like the same now. For older viewers might remember all the way back to George Bush Senior saying in 1988, when he went into the election, which he won, read my lips, no new taxes. They then put taxes up. And his defence was, these weren't new taxes, these were just old taxes going up. So here's the problem. Somehow, if you want to spend more money, and politicians of all stripes seem to be rolling out all sorts of spending plans, I haven't heard from any politician what they're going to cut. Well, somehow or other, you're going to have to tax more.
Can I just read something? So this is a quote from Jeremy Hunt. He says, I am throwing down the gauntlet to Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer to join us in this pledge. Apparently, the pledge is this. Jeremy Hunt has challenged Sir Keir Starmer to explicitly rule out property tax increases if Labour wins the election. So it'll be interesting to see if Keir Starmer takes him up on that challenge. But for me, the big story is this. Whoever you elect on July the 4th, your taxes are going up. And I think, Adam, that the social contract in this country has been completely broken. Whether it's £2,000, whether it's £3,000, it doesn't matter. Your life will not get better as a result.
How can we get children and the youth of today to aspire to do better for themselves and get on when they know that they're paying most of their money out in tax in one way or another? Anyone that doesn't think that Labour are going to put up taxes is living in cloud cuckoo land. Of course they are. And they're getting spiteful with private schools. You know, we've seen Keir Starmer's comments about private health. Do you really not think they're going to come for our houses and our inheritance to our children? Of course they are. They're spiteful.
I mean, the flip side
and that's what's going to happen.
The flip side to that is that which Keir Starmer did say last night is the Tories have raised your tax 24 times or 27 times.
And that's unforgivable as well.
Absolutely, they have. But also, to me, Labour are going to tax the right people rather than the wrong people. So, for instance, if they did stamp duty, it would be probably on higher value properties, not people buying their first house. If you are buying a £2 million house, then either you can afford more stamp duty or you can't afford the house. Them's the breaks. But realistically, the more money you have, the more tax you should be paying. Inheritance tax only affects 4% of people. If you are lucky enough to be inheriting that much money, you should be
That's very misleading, though, isn't
tax.
it, that, because of property prices? So it's basically, if anyone now owns a property outright, which loads of people will do... No, excuse me, there's loads of places in the country.
Isn't it?
£400,000 is that's a very expensive property.
You don't get out of London much. I know you've just revealed You've just revealed it. I'm sorry, there are loads of
you think
places,
the average house price across all of UK is above £400,000?
In the north of England, where actually we're not all just pouring gravy on our chicken and not bread. There are loads of places where house prices are. If anyone bought...
This is slanderous because I'm in a relationship with somebody from Yorkshire. I go there all the time.
Fantastic. There's some lovely parts of Yorkshire.
It's lovely. It's wonderful. It's much nicer than London. I am fully aware. I am saying that the average house price is different. The average person does not own an outright property above £400,000. That is why only 4% of people would pay inheritance tax right now.
No, but we go through life. You buy a packet of... or you buy some goods, you pay VAT. You know, you earn an income, you pay VAT. You buy a house, you pay VAT. You pay stamp duty. We die and we have to give the tax to the government.
If you have loads of money.
It is disgraceful.
It is loads of money.
Here's the problem, though, right?
I have paid inheritance tax.
It would be lovely that we could live in a world in which we just ask the millionaires and billionaires to pay a little bit more, and before you know it, the NHS crisis is solved, our schools... There are not enough millionaires and billionaires, and these people are unbelievably mobile. If their taxes go up, they can move out of the country.
Always
they
say
can
that,
move
and it
their
doesn't happen.
Well, it does happen.
It's such an idle threat.
It is happening. We are losing more millionaires from this country than Russia are at the moment, moving their assets
It is
abroad.
wildly unlikely, and also then you make it an appealing place to live. Culturally, it's wonderful. It's people's homes. People don't leave.
I feel so... I'll tell you what, when I step out of this office and walk through London, I feel the culture. Let me tell you.
You don't think London has great culture?
I think the culture in London is going to in the toilet.
The idea you can just keep
you don't even realise you're in London.
I'll tell you what, let's try it, because we've never tried it.
We are trying it right now.
We have never tried it properly.
OK. Sorry, I appreciate this is entirely my fault, but it's getting far too rowdy. Right, Welsh First Minister Vaughan Gething has only been in the job 12 weeks, but today he sat crying in the Senedd after losing a devastating no-confidence vote. Gething became the first black minister of Wales, and indeed any European country, apparently, when he took over from Mark Drakeford in March. But after a series of scandals, including the controversial £200,000 donation to his leadership campaign from a man convicted of environmental offences and accusations that he misled the COVID inquiry over deleted messages, Gething is now under pressure to resign.
When I'm out knocking doors in the Cynon Valley and speaking to people there, as I am every weekend, and increasingly now on weeknights too, the issues that they want to talk about are clear. A cost of living crisis. Tory government which has starved our public services and brought the country to its knees.
Bit pathetic?
No, not pathetic at all. The idea that if you see a man crying, you react like this, that is one of the reasons...
A man that is leading a country.
We should...
It depends why he's crying.
He's crying out of self-pity.
I don't care.
This is like crying about the D-Day stuff.
This is so much meaner than they would be to a woman. And this is exactly why men don't feel able to talk about the mental health issues.
Maybe I'd be too afraid to
Patrick, I'm waiting for the racism angle here, you know. I'm surprised that isn't being banded about by the left.
We will wait and see. Where we look. Now, moving on. Oh, no, not quite moving on. 29 members of the Senate voted in favour of this motion of no confidence in Gething, while 27 voted against. The vote was non-binding. Keir Starmer, meanwhile, has given his backing to Gething. I'll do the world again. Telling reporters on the campaign trail that he was doing a good job. But Sir Ed Davey was out and about in Romsey today, launching the Liberal Democrats' social care policy.
More people to have high quality care, and that means we need more care workers. So we're arguing they should be paid better because there's not enough of them. People are choosing to work in other places, not the care system. And we think we need free personal care like they have in Scotland. We want to introduce that in England because that will help with the care costs of many people. And we want to support family carers more. So care is a massive part of the Liberal Democrat agenda at this election.
But of course, Sir Ed Davey ended up doing what he does best. Look, I'll just ask this. Has anyone checked that Ed Davey's actually all right? Like,
he's having a nice time.
We keep thinking he's doing these stunts, right? And actually, it'll emerge in a few weeks' time that there's been something a bit off. But anyway, that was Ed Davey there, and I am, of course, only joking. He's been lighting up this campaign. Now, coming up, tonight's greatest prisoner union jackass, Republican firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene has been letting rip at anyone that'll have it.
We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshipping Trump. Worshipping as a convicted felon. He is a convicted felon. Well, yeah, so is George Floyd.
Oh, plenty more of that to come. But first, 54% of Gen Z Brits say they don't think Israel has a right to exist. Shocking stats, and we talk about that potentially lost generation next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the Business Task Force, so 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
She's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys. Tonight it's time to reveal the latest of tomorrow's front pages. OK, so it's the Daily Mirror now. D-Day 80 years. To those who served and those who died, thank you. There's a picture of Alec Penstone there in Normandy. The Eye, at last, a real plan to save Britain's rivers. Every political party in the UK is challenged to sign up to our manifesto and leave a legacy of generations to come. They've gone for river health, sewage, watchdog, bathing, so create 100 clean bathing spots, and farming. Farmers funded to improve water quality. I think this is right. I think the Eye have just done their own manifesto on clean rivers. So, all right, it's not what anyone was asking for from the Eye, but they've done it anyway. We're going to do it anyway. Anyway, The Times. We will tackle murder law loopholes, vow Tories. Tougher sentences for domestic abuse killers. OK, very serious story on the front of The Times there. Royals lead emotional D-Day tributes is the other one. The Guardian. Sunak lied to country over Labour tax and spend plans, says Starmer. Confidence vote lost for Welsh First Minister, and scientists hail bowel disease discovery. There's also a story there, which is interesting, about why I'll run as an independent candidate, Faiza Shaheen, on Labour and deselection. She was the one who was crying on Newsnight, and now she's going to be, it appears, definitely not crying in the pages of The Guardian tomorrow, so you can read that if you want. I'm joined again by my press pack, Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, serious story, this, quite a shocking one. Young Brits' obsession with the conflict in Gaza has led to some stark findings from a poll conducted by Unheard. Apparently, 54% of 18 to 24-year-olds agreed with the statement that the State of Israel should not exist. Just 21% disagreed. This comes after another poll that found that 50% of young people blamed Israel for the war in Gaza. Only 25% blamed Hamas. Well, it begs a series of questions. One of them is, have we bred an anti-Semitic generation? And what does this look like for the future? Mark, I mean, I genuinely fear for the future of Britain, especially when you consider what's on the front page of the newspapers, what we fought against, right? And now you've got 54% of people that say Israel shouldn't exist.
Yeah, there's a technical case here. You can technically be against the State of Israel and not anti-Semitic. So there's a difference between, Zionism and anti-Semitism. But it seems to me there is a problem here. And for these 54% who don't think the State of Israel exists, what do you think we should do with the 9 million civilians in Israel?
Well, including many Muslims that live in Israel.
Where should they be located to?
Yeah.
And I just worry, look, I mean, I'm a supporter of the State of Israel. I don't think they get everything right, far from it. I'm not an enormous fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. But it seems they are under such a microscope in a way that the surrounding countries are not. And unfortunately, I wonder whether our youngsters just hear our cross-examination of any misstep Israel makes and not enough about some of the things going on in Iran.
Yeah, well, quite. I mean, there is a huge amount of hypocrisy there. I hope you two don't mind, but I'm going to start with you on a different topic, because I want to rattle through this and get this in. So, critics reckon that the SNP's Stephen Flynn might have secured, or scored even, a spectacular own goal by refusing to cheer on England in the upcoming European Championships when Scotland aren't playing.
When Scotland is not playing, will you support England in the Euros?
No.
Will Donald Trump be welcome in Scotland if he wins the election?
Yes.
You just watched the head-to-head debate between Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. Who do you think won?
I don't think the people of Scotland won, because I don't think Scotland was mentioned once.
OK, so apparently he didn't really learn from Andy Murray's infamous 2006 gaffe when he jokingly said he would support anyone England was playing against, despite clearly talking in jest. The comments saw Murray take years' worth of stick from the English media. So there we go. Adam, you know, that guy does get paid partly by the English taxpayer.
Look, at the end of the day, he is Scottish, and there is a big rivalry in Scottish and English football. The majority of football fans in Scotland would not support England. I think that's a fact. Now, at the end of the day, I'd like to see Scotland do well, but if they was playing France or Belgium or someone Germany, I would probably want Scotland to win.
I would.
Am I bothered if they go out in the first round? No disrespect to the Scots. No, I'm not. I wouldn't support them.
That time, Wales did really well. I can't remember what Euros this was now, but they did really got to the quarters of the semis, didn't they? And it was great. It was fantastic. Do you think he scored a bit of an own goal there? Does he just look kind of spiteful and vindictive?
But I'm not really in a position to judge anybody for taking money from people they disagree with. So I think it's fine to get paid by somebody who you wouldn't necessarily support.
OK.
But Patrick, he's been honest as well. He's been honest. He's been honest.
Unlike Keir Starmer, he's being honest. And at the end of the day, it's the view of most Scottish football fans.
All right, fair enough. It's time to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Right, let's be snappy with these people. Mark, your greatest Britain. OK,
little-known chap, passed away aged 99, not a D-Day veteran, but his name's William Russell, one of the great heroes of British television, appeared in the first ever episode of Doctor Who, reprised the role 57, 58 years later, was in The Great Escape, one of the great movies of all time. William Russell, unsung hero of British TV.
All right, strong start.
Honorary nomination is Marjorie Taylor Greene for absolutely giving it to Fauci in the US court.
We can hear it. We can hear
for
it.
masking children and all these authoritarian COVID rules.
Let's do it.
And your science here, your science is displayed perfectly in this picture where children in school were put in plastic bubbles because of your science. Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes.
Oh, well, she did not hold back, did she? She's got form. She will give it to anyone who can have it, actually, that woman. But anyway, who's your...
Mine's the army horses, because we have... The
horses?
The horses that bolted, and one of them had blood down his face and all looked awful, and they would touch and go for a while. Those horses could have died.
They were.
They are making a happy recovery. Unfortunately, some of them are now back in the army, and I think they shouldn't be. But fundamentally, it's lovely news that the horses are OK.
I'm glad, especially the one that's covered in his own blood there is OK, because that was touch and go.
And he'll be really cool in the stables now. They'll all want to hear his stories.
Yeah, OK. That's where it got weird. All right, so today's winner of the Greatest Britain is Honorary Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's go to Union Jackass.
Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Guess what's right-wing now, Patrick? Getting fit.
Wow.
It's great, but it could turn you into a right-wing jerk. There's a dark side to getting fit. It makes you more right-wing. Wellness can turn you into a jerk. In fairness to Zoe Williams, she does start off her article by saying, OK, this is going to sound hypocritical. I wish more Guardian journalists started with that opening sentence. But now, getting fit makes you right-wing, according to Zoe Williams.
She's basically trying to make the point, is she, that you become a bit more entitled because you can look after yourself and you have less sympathy for anyone who doesn't. Yeah,
self-improvement.
Personal responsibility, but self-improvement. Anyway, go on, Adam.
Typical Guardian. Right, mine is Owen Jones for his disgusting tweet over Nigel Farage's milkshake assault.
Yeah. I think he said it was art, didn't he?
Yes, disgusting.
Yeah. OK, fair enough. All right, well, go on, who's your... oh, there's the tweet. Sorry, there we go. That's the tweet. So Owen Jones tweeted art as Nigel Farage got plastered full of banana milkshake by what turned out to... Well, allegedly, anyway. Let's leave that there. Right, go on.
Oh, yeah, look her up. She seems great. Mine is Marjorie...
Yeah, oh, God, I wish we could go into this. We can't, but that was a horrible thing I think you just said there. Carry on.
Sorry, don't approve the milkshake. I just think she seems great.
All right, fine, carry on.
Mine is Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I thought that her conduct was unbelievably unprofessional, and I understand that she's angry, but to refuse to call somebody who is medically a doctor undermines her point and makes her seem...
Who cost lives, who...
Still a doctor.
No, it's unforgivable what Anthony Fauci did.
But he is still a doctor.
Today... by the way, that wasn't the only... I didn't think you were going to go off on that. Anthony Fauci probably would deny that he cost lives. OK.
Of course he would, because he didn't.
Right. OK, Zoe Williams, the Guardian journalist there, for saying that if you get fit, you become more right-wing. How dare we all take a bit of personal responsibility in our lives here. But, right, thank you to my wonderful panel. Thank you. Thank you to you at home or wherever you've been watching or wherever you've been listening. I'll be back again tomorrow at 9 p.m. It's Headliners next. Until then, keep fighting the good fight.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow's going to be another fairly cool day across the northwest with a risk of some further heavy showers, and we could see some further heavy showers this evening with a northwesterly wind pushing showers into similar areas. It's northwestern Scotland where we're going to see the highest rainfall totals. Through the next 24 hours or so, we could see a mix of hail, possibly some hill snow in there as well. We could also see some showers as far south as southwestern England overnight tonight. Many western areas seeing a bit more in the way of cloud tonight compared to last night. So it will be a bit of a milder night for some of us, but I think still where skies stay the clearest, there's a risk of a rural grass frost. So potentially another chilly start for some areas, particularly across eastern Scotland, where it will be a bright start to the day, plenty of early sunshine. But notice we've got some bright colours on those showers, showing the heaviness of them through tomorrow morning. We could see some spray on the roads because of that across western areas of Scotland in towards northwestern England, as well as parts of Wales, the Midlands as well, potentially seeing some fairly heavy showers. But most of us getting away with a dry and bright start despite the chillier feel to things at the moment. So another fairly cool day to come tomorrow, especially for the time of year, and if you are further north and west, where it will be another showery day. There's another risk of thunderstorms, potentially some hail as well in those showers, especially as we head in towards Thursday evening here. Elsewhere across Wales, central areas of England and across the south coast in particular, it still feel fairly pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 18, possibly 19 degrees, so that's not too bad for the time of year. Now into Friday, we start to see a band of more persistent rain push across the UK, so that will bring a greater risk of some showery outbreaks.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job
than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters, and it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been
Come on,
cancelled.
see ya.
There's the door.
But yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
I'm surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.